So I would like to welcome you all to our first webinar in a new series, Living Safely with Dementia in the Community. Today's focus will be on interactions with police services. My name is Susan Oster. I'm a public education coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society Southwest Partners. I will be the MC and moderator for today's webinar. Anita Luby, another educator with the Society, will provide technical support. At the Alzheimer's Society, our role is not only to provide programs and services for people who are going through the journey of dementia, but also to provide dementia education and to advocate for those living with cognitive disabilities. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we are meeting on a virtual platform, I would like to acknowledge that the counties of Elgin, Middlesex, and Oxford lie on lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. As settlers, we thank all the generations of people who, for thousands of years, have taken care of this land. Long before today, there have been Indigenous peoples who have been the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Attawandaron, Wendat, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions that Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening our communities in particular, and our province and country as a whole. We thank them for their stewardship of this land, and we are in solidarity with the Indigenous community as well as we all move forward in reconciliation. And since everyone's situation is unique, the information being provided in this presentation is for educational purposes only. Should you have specific questions about your situation, please contact your support worker. And I now have the great pleasure of welcoming our panelists. And we actually have a bonus panelist with us today, so we're very excited about that. So first, I will introduce Kelsey. So Kelsey Percival is a mental health clinician with the Mobile Crisis Response Team with the Canadian Mental Health Association. So the team is partnered with the Middlesex OPP and Strathroy Caradoc Police Service. Kelsey joined the MCERT team in June 2021. She has worked in social services for the past 15 years in various roles, and she has a background supporting different demographics and individuals with diverse backgrounds. Next, Acting Sergeant Erin Tuffin has been with the Ontario Provincial Police for 8 years and currently oversees the mental health portfolio in Middlesex County. Acting Sergeant Tuffin is currently the only mental health officer in Middlesex County and works alongside the CMHA, or Canadian Mental Health Association, clinicians daily on the Mobile Crisis Response Team. This team is responsible for responding to live crisis calls throughout Middlesex County. Next is our special guest panelist is Michelle McIntyre, has been in policing for 19 years. She has worked with Strathroy Caradoc Police Service since 2008. Michelle, I don't know why I keep adding an S there, and had prior experience with Toronto Police Service and London Police Service as well. Her current role with Strathroy Caradoc Police Service is the mental health officer. She also oversees the Mobile Crisis Response Team partnership with CMHA and Strathroy Caradoc. Since she's with a smaller force, Michelle wears many hats. She is also the community service officer, school resource officer, and media relations officer for the service. So we're very lucky to have her with us today. And finally, my colleague Susan Wood has an MSW degree from Western University. She has been a behavioral support social worker with the Alzheimer's Society since 2020. In her career, Susan has supported people dealing with many complex, multi-layered situations involving elder abuse, capacity issues, and social determinants of health needs. Susan has liaised with official capacity assessors, the Office of the Public Guardian, Elder Abuse Ontario, to achieve optimal outcomes for the families that she has been privileged to support. And with that, I will turn things over to Kelsey, who will give you a little bit more information about the team that she is working with.
So good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. We do want to just give some information regarding our program. So the name of our program is the Mobile Rapid Response Team. You may hear the acronym MCERT out in the community. We have 3 full-time staff that work 8:30 to 3:30, and we are clinicians that are shared between the 2 departments. So we work with Middlesex OPP, and we work with Strathroy Caradoc Police as well. Our model has a couple different ways in how we support members in the community. The first way that we support is we have the ability as clinicians to ride along with the police. So oftentimes we are partnered directly with Aaron and Michelle, and we can respond to live calls. So in this role, we will respond to a call that is appropriate for our team to attend. So that could include a mental health crisis, addictions related crisis, or just somebody who's having a really difficult time coping, or even going and helping an individual who is struggling with a new diagnosis, or is aging and having some new experiences that is a struggle for them. If you just could change it over to the next one. Yep. And then the second way we could support individuals in the community is actually through our follow-up tasks. So if a clinician's not working and a officer attends a live call and feels that a family or individual could use some added support, they will actually task our team to follow up with the family or the individual to provide them support and resources. So we would do this either over the phone if requested by an individual, or we'll attend in person. And we'll have this blended approach where we do the follow-up supports plus attend the live calls as well. There are other teams in our jurisdictional area that offer the same services that are integrated right within the police departments. One is the MOST team with St. Thomas, and the other one is MHART team with Oxford County. And as well, CMHA offers other crisis supports within our jurisdictional area. So oftentimes, if we're unable to attend a call, officers can suggest that somebody may need to attend the CMHA Crisis Center. That's a 24/7, 7 days a week center that an individual could go to, meet with a clinician, and just be supported in that moment. We have the Reach Out Crisis Line, and we have other like internal crisis teams as well that are outside of this county program, such as the Coast team. We have a Strathroy Crisis team that will help do some support within the hospital. And we have a CRT team that also works with in London specifically. So who we serve. So our program is unique for CMHA because generally CMHA serves 16 plus, but actually our program will serve children, adults, and seniors. And we will provide support to individuals with mental health, with addictions related struggles, or just in general, if somebody is in crisis, we're there to help and to provide resources in that moment. And again, we serve anybody, like we will serve people who are high risk or people medium or low, it doesn't matter. We're just there to help and try to assist the officers in ensuring that our community members have, what they need to thrive and move forward in the situation. We do serve individuals, we do get tasked with individuals and families living with dementia or other neurological conditions. In this case, we will provide like maybe resources to a family. We'll provide some like emotional support in that moment because we understand it's extremely tough to navigate. And we could, on say a live call, provide crisis support to the individual in need. So some benefits to our program is that with having a mental health clinician out with police, we can do some advocating in that moment to try and safety plan or give resources that maybe not necessarily somebody has to in that, you know, in that situation go to hospital if it can be diverted, which is nice. We have other resources available to us, other connections within the community, so we can make some calls to get some immediate support for individuals. We can redirect or help in a crisis so that maybe criminal charges don't necessarily have to be, you know, the next option for somebody. As well, like we can support individuals if they do have to go to hospital. So not in every case are we able to divert it, but we can be there as an emotional support and an added resource, physically going to the hospital with an individual, and then being able to provide hospital staff and the medical care team with appropriate information so that individual has the best support they may need moving forward. Part of the intent of this program as well is to try and reduce like reoccurring calls for individuals. So if we can actually get out there or do those calls or do those follow-up visits and provide the support that somebody needs, we hope that it would help mitigate any further crisis in the future for them, or they would have the tools and resources available for them for the future. And as well, a kind of unique part of this program is that we are also a resource for the police. So we will do support outside in the community, but we'll also do some in-house support. And of course, we want to reduce any stigma for mental health, people who are aging and struggling, people who have addictions related struggles. We want to do our part to provide psychoeducation to individuals, to with the people that we work with. So that's a big part of our role as well. So the next part is, you're probably wondering, well, how would I get a referral to the MCERT team? This sounds great. But it's actually an internally based type of referral system. So at this time, the way that our program works is that we are directly referred from the police department. And then the only other way that we really can get involved with the family is if an individual were to be presented to the situation table. And that's a table of various community agencies that come together that may identify like acute elevated risk in a situation, and they feel like a family or individual may need added support. We may get involved that way and provide our support in that capacity as well. But this program is a specific kind of police-based program. So every referral that we receive is through like an internal system. And I think that might be the end of my, yeah.
Good job, Kels.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was fabulous. Thanks, Kelsey. So we're going to now move into our first scenario. And the scenario actually will be, we have sort of two scenarios, but they're actually the same. We're just going to highlight some different aspects of the case for each discussion point. So Anita will also put this into the chat. Once I read through it, I'm just going to take the slides down so you can actually see everyone and we can have the discussion. So we see here, there's a person living with dementia, has decided that he was going to visit his parents who had been deceased for 30 years or more. The care partner tried to reason with him, but he would have no part in it. She then decided to block him from leaving, at which time he grabbed her and pushed her aside, causing her to fall down a flight of 5 stairs. He proceeded out the door. She called police and informed them her spouse was living with dementia and had wandered off. She also informed them that he had pushed her down the stairs. They found him a short distance away within 30 minutes. They arrested him and placed him in the back of the cruiser. He had no recollection of what he did or where he was going. The police took him to hospital where he was admitted and the charges of assault were later dropped. The care partner was examined by paramedics and was bruised with no other injuries. So that's our first scenario, and I know Anita has put that in the chat. So I'm just going to stop sharing here. Oops, sorry. Lost my controls. There we go. So hopefully you can see everyone now. So I think we'll go first to our police folks who can comment on this.
So I'll just kind of start off with like going through the scenario a little bit on, obviously that's the way we laid out the scenario, but just to kind of, not necessarily when police are responding to a call like that, would it result in an arrest? The times that maybe it would result in arrest is if we located the individual, maybe they had a weapon, maybe they were still actively assaultive or resisting arrest or like anything like that. But if we met with somebody and there was medical concerns, they don't know where they are, they don't remember the incident happening, they're not being assaultive to the police, we're able to actually communicate with them. A lot of times we wouldn't go right to, you know, slapping on handcuffs and arresting. It all would be a safety, the safety of that individual, the safety of the police. And obviously in this situation, they have left the home. So the safety of the victim or the care partner is not a concern at that point because that individual has left the home. A lot of times when I've responded to something like this we didn't have to arrest at that exact moment, we would look into calling an ambulance to assist us, especially if age is a factor. Like Aaron would agree with me. I do not want to put somebody like in their 70s, 80s, or 90s into the back of my cruiser, which is like this big. It's just, if I can avoid that for someone that has a legitimate health concern, we will do our best. It's not saying that we can't, depending on the risk. Aaron, did you want to jump in on that comment at all? Or?
No, I think that's bang on. And like we said, every situation is unique, and it was mentioned earlier in this presentation, and it's you know, it's difficult for us to say how different officers are going to react, and it's based on the situation of, you know, if we have MCERT available, we're going to go out and use MCERT to the best of our ability, and to make sure that, you know, we tick off every single box that we can before we're jumping to a conclusion of arresting someone.
And if you do reside in a smaller town, a lot of our officers either grew up here or they've been policing here long enough that we're familiar with people. We've had previous calls. And those officers use those relationships to de-escalate if they happen to know who the individual are or have that history. I think one of the important things to talk about on this scenario is in this situation, it is a spouse who is the care partner. The rules for police responding to any intimate partner violence, so direct spouse, as opposed to if that care partner was a family member or a friend or whatever the case may be, the police do have to treat those differently. They have changed the laws around domestic violence, and they have taken a lot of discretion away from the police. The rules now for the police are that if there's reasonable grounds that offense took place, whether that's a mischief in the home, whether that's a threat, an assault, whatever the case may be, the police they must lay a charge. That being said, I have been involved with calls that are domestic based, and depending on the degree of cognitive decline or what medically is happening there, we also as police have to prove that there was intent to commit an offense. And we would take in consideration what is the, you know, is there a bruise that's the injury? Is there like a serious broken bone, or like the injury, the severity of the injury would definitely play a role in how the police would have to handle it too. Aaron, I don't know, maybe you want to just touch on like once it gets to the courts, how if a charge had to be laid?
Right. So I think that obviously, just to kind of simplify what Michelle is explaining is obviously anything criminal is first and foremost what the police are acting on, especially when it comes to an intimate partner, domestic violence scenario or situation. At that point, if police are the ones that are, if police are laying a charge, it's now in the court's hands. At that point, with the information like Michelle mentioned earlier about there being frequent calls, if we have a frequent history of the individuals that we're dealing with, we may already have flags or information on these people that might say that they're suffering with dementia or some other type of cognitive impairment. And I think that with that information, if we can provide that with our Crown Brief is basically our charge packaging that we send to the courts. If we're able to send that to the courts and say that, hey, you know what, I think that this trial or this charge needs to be seen through a mental health court. At that point, the judge can determine on which route they want to go. And if the situation happened due to the cognitive impairment that day, then the judge is the one that's going to be able to decide that. But unfortunately, police have to act on the criminal nature of any sort of event. I just wanted to touch back on kind of what Michelle mentioned earlier about the frequent calls and if we're familiar with these people. So police, we have a system that we use. It's called Niche RMS. It's all throughout Ontario, throughout Canada, likely throughout the States as well. But basically, this is a system that we are all able to interchangeably used from our various detachments, but we're able to add what's called flags and cautions on different individuals. So if someone has a mental health I don't want to say a diagnosis, or if someone is struggling with mental health, or if they're a suicide threat, or if they have a medical condition that police need to be aware of, if they have a residence that we should be cautioned of because there's drugs or alcohol, we have the capability to put these flags on different people and addresses. So the more information that we have prior to a call coming out, the more information we're able to get to our officers that are responding to it, to give them a little bit better of a background.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kelsey. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So like Strathroy Caradoc has a partnership as well with Medical Alert. So I'm not sure if anyone has connected. You're able to add a picture, different triggers, different locations that person may go if they did wander away from the home. This is all helpful because as soon as a call comes in, and you mentioned there is a Medical Alert, it gets a photo to our officers faster. It gets these triggers to our officers that are responding while they're driving there. And it gives them kind of the tools in the toolbox on best how to respond to an individual that's wandered away or suffering from dementia. As well as we have a Health IM system, which when officers do arrive, we also fill out this. It fills out different triggers and information that the police have noticed on calls from previously dealing with maybe the same individual. And we share that with the hospital's other officers as well. So the more information we have, the better outcome usually happens with more information for the police.
Michelle, oh, sorry, Kelsey. I want to stay on the Medical Alert thing just for a moment.
Yep.
I know when we met previously, you mentioned sometimes people will indicate that there's a financial barrier to subscribing to a service like Medical Alert, and you had indicated that you have a path to address that. If you can maybe just speak to that.
Yeah, there is. We have in the past, if it's a financial barrier, we have connected with resources such as home and community care. They often offer like a 3-month covered, see if this is something helpful. Kelsey maybe can speak of other resources that may help raise funds as well to cover that. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys ever have funds to cover that as well, Susan?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. Just through Medical Alert, we as social workers at the Alzheimer's Society, we can apply for subsidy on people's behalf to get the Medical Alert covered for 1 year at a time.
Mm-hmm. And just, I know a lot of people, when we bring up Medical Alert at calls, they're like, oh, well, you know, my husband or wife, they're not gonna wear a bracelet. There's so many different ways now. There's little clips that can go on shoes. There's tons of ways now to like maybe even have it on them without them even knowing that they have it on them. Because I know some people are set in their ways. They don't want to wear bracelets. They don't want to wear necklaces. They've obviously expanded from that. And there's so many different options now.
Thanks,
The other thing-
Kelsey. Go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to touch on is actually like the MCERT's response to this. So I'll treat scenario 1A as like a live call response. So say we hear this coming in and we're able to actually attend live in person to this. It's likely that we would potentially go, say, to the family member's home. We would try to collect like relevant information. We'd provide like emotional support in that time, but as well explore like what resources do they have available to them right now? Who may they be connected to? Perhaps this is a brand new behavior that they are experiencing. This is all very new to them. So we're able to recommend the Alzheimer's Society or home and community care, maybe explore if they have a family doctor. If they don't, give them a list of family doctors in the area that may be accepting patients, and kind of go through like the next steps for them to kind of be supported moving forward. As well, once the individual was found by the police, it's likely that we would probably even attend roadside to provide support to that individual, kind of do our own like little mental health assessment in that moment, and then potentially go to hospital with them and be able to articulate with the medical staff what has gone on, what the family has reported, what we have observed ourselves in regards to the individual of concern, and really start advocating and pushing for some added supports or some further assessments to take place at that time.
That's great. Thanks so much, Kelsey.
And just to kind of add on that one last time there, just to quickly mention, typically Kelsey and I, or Michelle and Kelsey, would attend the scene, would attend the location of this party prior to any sort of arrest or anything taking place, especially if we did have the knowledge that this person was suffering with dementia. And I see that there in the scenario, it does say that we do have the history, or we do have that information available to us at that time. So
Thank you so much. Susan.
I'd just like to add, as your social worker through the Alzheimer's Society, for care partners who might be on this webinar today, we hope to start a relationship with you long before a situation escalates to the point where police are needing to be called. We want to provide education support around responsive behaviors. What is the unmet need? What are the triggers? Why is this person wanting to go home? Like, can we address the underlying need, the unmet need for companionship, or they're bored, or what have you? We always know that behavior is a form of communication. We would also want to add, we never want you to be in a situation where your safety is being compromised. So in this scenario where the care partner is standing in the way of the person wanting to leave, we would never want you to put yourself in that situation. So we would suggest that you let them pass by, that you maybe have called a neighbor or someone else to try to help diffuse the situation, or yourself go outside with them and say, you know what, tell me about your parents, like maybe let's go for a drive there together. So we just really want to emphasize the fact that we are there to support you. And we do know that this disease is very unpredictable. So if you do need to call the police, please don't hesitate in doing so. They are definitely our partners in care.
Thanks, Susan. And Michelle, I know you want to jump in again, which is great.
I just wanted to touch on, kind of piggyback off of what Susan Wood said. Obviously, the police also have the right to act on the Mental Health Act. So let's take out the fact that there was an assault in this situation and just maybe the person's left the home, or there's extreme concerns about caring for themselves. The police can apprehend if somebody is a danger to themselves or others, you know, or their failure to care for themselves and keep themselves safe. Yes, maybe with those situations, handcuffs may still be placed on, as an apprehension can look very similar to an arrest. If we have to apprehend them for their safety, if there's violence, we will possibly be putting handcuffs on somebody. But that does not mean they're arrested. That could mean that they're apprehended under the Mental Health Act. And we're doing that for safety reasons until we can get them to the hospital and get them in a safe situation.
Great, thanks so much. And certainly, again, if you have any questions related to this scenario that we just gone through, please add them to the Q&A. We will be addressing other questions at the end. So we are going to move on and talk about sort of the next aspect of this situation. Okay, reshare my screen here. There we go. Okay, so just a bit of background or a bit of information about why this is so important. So in Ontario, so these are our fairly updated stats. There are over 275,000 Ontarians living with dementia. We know that in our Southwest partners area, that number is over 13,500. And it's important to note that 6 out of 10 people who are living with dementia will go missing at some point. So the number is quite high. And often people don't think about that or don't appreciate that, or they think, oh, you know, I don't think we have to worry about that yet. But the truth is that this can happen really at any time in the course of the disease. And if folks are not found quickly, the outcome can be very poor. And at least in an urban area, 75% of those are found quite close by. So keeping that in mind, the importance of this. We won't get into this in great detail, but there are a lot of reasons why someone might go missing. And thinking about the scenario that we've shown you, again, you know, we don't always know why someone wants or goes missing or what their intent is, but we can maybe consider this particular individual and might be kind of behind their need to leave the home. So with that, we will look at the scenario again. I won't read it again, but just take a quick look. And Anita can put that back in the chat, or you can scroll back. And we're going to focus this time on the aspects related to the person going missing. And I think we will start again with our police contributors.
Michelle, you want to start that?
Yeah, I just seen that there was a question here. You say the insert is available until 3:30. Most incidents occur when the person is sundowning in the evening. What happens then? As Kelsey spoke, unfortunately, this is a new program and we're starting from somewhere in hopes that eventually funding will come in to continue to expand the program to be more of a 24-hour program. But unfortunately, it always comes down to money and resources. So this is kind of the starting point. What happens at this point is our officers do respond to these type of calls. And that's when we have the follow-up calls, and we would be following up first. Say if it was happen at 5 in the morning, we come in at 8 and we would try to get to the hospital if they're still in hospital, or we'd be following up with the family members, the complainants, and looking at next steps. Sometimes when people are in hospital or we've had a lot of calls, we'll look at presenting them to the situation table and having a wraparound approach from many different resources coming together. But that's unfortunately, yes, we're not a 24-hour service at this point.
That's not sorry, Kels, that's not to say that it's not going to happen. Obviously, like you mentioned, this program is fairly new within the last couple of years, and you know it's shown throughout Ontario that it has been a work in progress and something that is working. And I'm hopeful that we can be similar to Essex County and some other spots kind of a little bit more south from us, and operate 24 hours around the clock, and or have a youth team as well as an adult team. Obviously, there's so much room for us to expand.
So this is like a great example of like how our team would probably do a follow-up approach. So it is very likely that our team would absolutely be tasked with this. And we may start by trying to contact the family themselves to see, you know, how things have been since this incident occurred. And again, we'll go through the exact same things. Like we'll provide that immediate support over the phone. We will explore what resources they have available to them. Say that things worsened and they had to go to hospital that night. We could also, on our end as clinicians, check the hospital records and see what supports maybe were provided there. And if somebody was discharged without maybe a concrete plan in place, then we can then start doing the advocating or giving the resources for home and community care, for example, or for the Alzheimer's Society. So our approach would be very similar to the live approach. It will just be after the fact, but we will ensure that the family and the individual are given the support that they need.
Yeah, and I think just kind of on that, Kelsey's viewing it as from an MCERT perspective, and how we would support the individuals and the care partners. Just kind of doing it from a live perspective as well, just for you guys, from a care partner's perspective. Obviously, the sooner we get this information that someone has left the residence, the sooner we can be on it. Every missing person call, especially with somebody suffering with dementia, if they're a youth, if there's any sort of mental health crises or threats involved, we're pretty much all hands on deck if we're able to. So just know that, if somebody is in a vulnerable category, like one of those, we are putting all hands on deck and we're doing what we can to get them. So if you are the person calling in to police, be sure to let us know every single detail possible that you may have. And I understand that this is a stressful situation for people calling in, but the more information you have to provide, whether it be a history, whether it be what they're wearing, whether it be what they said, stuff like that, or how they, if they frequently leave the residence, where they frequently go, different things like that are going to play a huge role in us finding the individual. So as mentioned earlier, Michelle mentioned it, the frequent calls. So if somebody is known to be suffering with dementia, we can put something like that in our system. We can put them in as potentially unpredictable behavior, potentially going missing periodically. We can put in information like they like to go to Tim Hortons, or they like to walk to the park and sit on the bench, like different little bits of information that we can add to our thing. We can make it easier for her.
And just to clarify, our officers are getting training. Like, we do have yearly training that we come in, and we tell our responding 911 officers that are on the road, okay, like, these are the habits. Like, if they go missing, they're probably gonna most likely go to a place they're familiar with, or maybe walk in a straight line. And like, all the information that you had just provided is getting to our frontline officers, which is important. I also just wanted to touch on, if you don't have medical alert, but maybe you are a care partner that's not living with the person with dementia, or your family member, and maybe that next of kin for that individual, we would appreciate you calling us and saying, hi, this person lives in your jurisdiction. We wanted to let you know they have this diagnosis. I happen to live in London, or I live here, but here's my phone number, here's my home number, here's my cell phone number. The police love if they have a contact number for a family, for an ex-kin, for somebody who we could reach out to, maybe at that late time hour, and just say, like, could you come help de-escalate? Could you tell us a safe place? Like, having somebody on file, it gets very difficult when we have nothing for that person to access that place.
Yeah, and just other little tidbits of information as well that that work in our favor. Obviously, somebody that's a missing person, Sue mentioned that 75% are found within 3.2 kilometers of where they left. So if we have all hands on deck, we typically can kind of get into that area quick enough to find someone. Obviously, other options that we suggest people use are, if they don't want to go with medical alert and pay the subscription or whatnot, there is the option for Apple AirTags. Apple AirTags can be affixed to any sort of walking device or sweater, in a pocket, in a jacket that frequents somebody, in a wallet, in a purse, something that can that this person never forgets, or that will always have on their person. And then the other option is, if you are calling in from a caretaker perspective, providing us with their cell phone information. If they do have a cell phone, that becomes a huge piece of the puzzle as well, because from a police standpoint, we have the ability to ping phones, and basically that gives us a radius and a very specific location as to where somebody may be.
That's great. Thanks, Acting Sergeant Tuppen. So I'm going to go next to Susan. She has her hand up and talk about the role that the social worker can play.
Great. So I just wanted to mention that the Alzheimer's Society has a really excellent document called Finding Your Way on our website that I'm not sure if Anita is able to put in the chat, but it's a document that's very comprehensive about where the person likes to go, what their habits are, where they lived growing up, all sorts of information that I encourage care partners to fill out completely and drop it off at places where the person you're caring for might go. The police detachment is an obvious one, if they're willing to accept it. If for whatever reason they don't have the ability to scan that into their system, always keep printed copies at your house so that if a person does go missing and the police attend, you can hand them this document quickly. I also encourage people to leave a copy of the Finding Your Way document with your day program, doctor's office, places people might frequent. So I wanted to make sure that I added that piece in. And then as well, I also wanted to mention from the Alzheimer's Society perspective, if you have a social worker with our society, please call, debrief. We can talk about what the unmet needs might be. Does the person need some additional social interaction through maybe an adult day program? We have in-home recreation opportunities. Perhaps we can advocate with home and community care for increased PSW or respite supports. We also want to make sure that people don't forget about their friends and neighbors as being in the circle of support. So if, and going back to we know that the statistics says to us that a person with dementia will wander. So making sure that your circle of support includes neighbors, friends, people that interact with your person on a regular basis.
Great, thanks so much, Susan. And we have that information in the chat about the form. Just a note, and I was going to mention it later, but just in case we run out of time, part of this whole series that we're starting, we are going to be launching some what we call kind of safety clinics within our region. And through that, people can come. It'll be sort of not at an Alzheimer's Society office. It'll be kind of in a community setting, and folks can drop in and learn a bit more about safety, fill in the form. We can take their picture and have all of that provided. So those dates will be coming. We have one scheduled in London, and the other dates will be announced soon. So that'll be coming up, and great opportunity for people to get that information right away and have all of those resources available to them. So any other comments from our panel regarding the scenario around the risk of folks going missing, or any examples that you wanted to share in a general sense of how things have gone in this situation?
I would say that generally, like I said earlier, the quicker we have the information, the quicker we have the call, the better the response, and the quicker the person's found. But other than that, I think that we've thrown quite a bit of information in regards to kind of what to do next and potential resources available and options that people can use moving forward.
Great, thanks so much. So with that, I'm just going to reshare my screen again here. Okay, so we're going to send out some additional resources. This is coming from the Alzheimer's Society, just around understanding, again, personal expressions or responsive behaviors. And so that will be sent out later. So I'm just going to bring them up here so they will be part of the recording. And we want to offer some time for additional questions. There is one that has come up about the MCERT program. being connected to community support services? Is there another connection point between community support services?
We don't at this time. We unfortunately are kind of see métier now. We do have obviously connections with other community partners, but we are not directly connected with community support services at this time.
Great, thank you so much. And certainly if you have other questions for our panelists, again, a reminder to add them to the Q&A. And again, just maybe a question to our panelists in terms of some of the successes or differences that you've seen since having this program in place compared to in the past when you didn't have this sort of amazing program. How has, I know Kelsey talked a little bit about some of the advantages, but perhaps from the police perspective, how has this partnership helped?
Again, I just find a lot of our officers, our younger officers, even our seasoned officers, they are reaching out to us, especially in those difficult calls that may have involved somebody that has assaulted someone but have a diagnosis of dementia. It often helps them say, okay, I'm not pursuing charges at this point because MCERT has come in, they've got that person to a safe place, whether they're staying with a family member to separate the spouses from being together. If the police are able to say that person's in a safe place, there's no risk to that victim, we're gonna call a Crown's office and ask them if we have to proceed with charges or if we could take this in a different direction. It gives some time to not just be like, okay, we're arresting, we're charging, and we're gonna let the courts worry about it. It actually helps paint this picture that mental health resources are involved. And we take off a lot of the time from the officers responding to the call initially, and we do a lot of the legwork in the back where we have more time to do that. So I personally find the results are better for one, the person who is maybe assaulted someone that had or committed a crime in some way who have a diagnosis of dementia, for the victim who may be a spouse and don't necessarily want to see their husband or wife charged, but want to see some help put in place. It just gives us more options than just our hands are tied, we have to lay a charge.
Great, thanks so much. And just a note, a thanks to Rhonda, who's a colleague, just a reminder that, again, the similar program in Oxford, MHART, I think Kelsey mentioned that at the beginning. So again, in our region, there are other programs. They might have a different acronym, but they function in a very similar way. So there is a question here. If a domestic situation were to occur between a person living with dementia and their spouse, a charge must be levied by the police. What usually happens after a person with dementia is charged? So would they be treated the same as a person who doesn't have dementia, or is there a specialized forensic psychiatry facility for people living with dementia? So I guess sort of where do they perhaps go after that charge is laid? I think it's a good question.
To be honest, a lot of people that are getting charged are getting released. They're getting released on conditions not to be back within that home. So as an MCERT team, if there were charges continuing, we'd have to find a safe place for that person to go. And then our team can look into like getting them into a hotel, getting them with another family member, getting them in a safe spot as well. And then personally, what I would do if I was laying that charge is I'd be notifying our court services and a Crown attorney and saying, here's the situation. If we are proceeding with a charge, I think it should go through our mental health court, because obviously the fact of the diagnosis did play a direct role into the crime that took place.
Right.
Exactly. I don't have anything to add on that.
They would be looking at, as a consequence of jail time or as a probation, they'd be looking at more like, okay, this person has a diagnosis. Do we need to get more supports in place? It would be more of a rehabilitation type of consequence, I'd hope, than more of a criminal consequence.
Right, thank you. Susan, anything to contribute, just if we're waiting for more questions in terms of working with the MCERT team and how that's helped you as a social worker as well as this whole team?
Yeah, so a couple of things I just wanted to add. We've talked a little bit about the situation table and how situations in the community that are of acutely elevated risk can be brought to this table to rally, really to provide a circle of care, additional supports to the family. And I just want people to know that the Alzheimer's Society is part of the London Situation Table and the Middlesex Situation Table. So if you are in a situation where you feel that the person you are caring for is at acutely elevated risk, please forward that to your individual social worker or to the Alzheimer's Society. And we are certainly at those tables and able to present those situations. The other thing I just wanted to add is I have been involved in several situations where police have been called when an expressive behavior has occurred that leads to an injury or wandering or whatnot. Without fail, it's very difficult to go through in the moment. Very, very difficult. It's unpredictable. Emotions are very heightened. Ultimately, as things have proceeded through the court system or the hospital system or what have you, care partners will tell me this was the way that I got the additional supports that I needed, or this was the catalyst to having my person be deemed crisis for long-term care. So while it is difficult, sometimes it results in the increased supports that families need.
Great, thanks, Susan. And Constable McIntyre, I see there's a question there, and I just wanted to address the one that you answered.
Those. I did answer one by typing it just because I didn't know if we have enough time, but the question was like, how would you go about like contacting the courts to maybe have charges dropped? Again, once the charge is laid by the police, it's kind of out of our hands. It goes to the court system. So the police cannot drop that charge. You would want to contact the Crown Attorney's office, whether you're a victim, whether you're a family member, and provide that information, whether that's that they're still in hospital and that, you know, maybe that victim doesn't want to proceed with charges. As there's an actual domestic violence Crown Attorney. So if it is domestic related, you would want to ask to speak with that Crown Attorney. If it was just a matter of charges, you could just ask to speak to any Crown Attorney from the office. That's out at 80 Dundas Street in London.
And could you also just loop in the next question about how quickly the criminal charges can be dropped? I
guess that would all depend on the Crown's choice. Often it won't really happen till the first court date that was set. So there could be conditions in place for even a couple months until it goes for its first court date, and then they ask for amendments to the conditions or decide if they're proceeding with charges.
And just the last question before we wrap up. We've been talking about the situation table, but again, to be fair, we haven't really talked about what it is and who's part of it. So I know it might look a little bit different depending on which area you're in, but if someone can maybe speak to that.
Aaron, you want to talk to that?
Finding more information about it, I think just basically what Susan, myself, Kelsey, and Michelle have basically explained about it. It's kind of a behind the scenes community partnership with multiple agencies that, like Susan mentioned, are out to provide support the best they can for somebody that is in acute elevated risk. So obviously a risk for themselves, a risk for others, a risk for, just moving forward with their daily life. As far as what resources are out there or what information is out there online, I'm not really sure. If you're already part of the Alzheimer's Society, I'm not sure if Susan, do you have any documentation or anything like that can be shared?
We don't specifically, but I have put together a document for other folks who are interested in learning more about it through the hospital that I can share after the fact.
Yeah, so that might be a starting point for something like that. Unfortunately, I don't have anything on my side for the police side of things, and I don't think that CMHA does either.
I was just going to add, it's important to note for somebody to be presented to situation table, they already need to be connected in some capacity to one of the other community agencies that's there, a part of this group. So an individual in the community couldn't refer themselves to situation table. And there's no referral process like that. It's more or less if one of these community agencies is actually involved with an individual and feels like, okay, this person could use a more wraparound support, they actually present it kind of behind closed doors to other community agencies, and usually it's with the consent of the individual to do this, and then we do that wraparound approach for them.
Great, thanks to all of you, and just a thanks to Paul, who's put something in the chat about how things are working up in Grey Bruce. So thanks to you, Paul. And so I'm just going
just on Paul's thing there, he mentioned that in Grey Bruce that they have the court support. We also have that option here in Middlesex County. So if you're in this location, that's a benefit. I want to say that most of the counties do have this option, whether it be through the courts and or victim services as well.
fabulous, thank you. So just to wrap up. Again, a huge thank you to our panelists who are all extraordinarily busy in their roles, and we thank them for giving us their lunch hour to present today, and hope this information is very valuable to those who are here and in the recording. Just a note, certainly if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you will hear about upcoming events like these webinars, and also I mentioned an upcoming clinic, safety clinic, and currently that will be on June 23rd from 10 to 2 at the Kiwanis Seniors Community Center in London. So it's part of their existing wellness fair. So if you come that day, 10 to 2 on June 23rd, you can also access some safety information. Just a quick plug for our walk, which is upcoming at the end of this month, one of our major fundraisers for the Society. So we have locations all across the region, and you can also participate online. And a quick, again, just a thank you all for joining us again over your lunch hour. When you leave, a survey should pop up, and we really appreciate the feedback. That is how we plan topics for the future. And you can, if it doesn't pop up, you can also take a picture of that QR code or put your camera on it, and it should pop up there as well. So with that, we are all done, and just a big thanks to our panelists and attendees.